Hey everyone, what's up? My name is Joss and welcome back to my channel, squibblesreads. I've eaten so many of these salt and vinegar kettle chips that I feel like my tongue is going to shrivel up in my body. But anyways, this weekend I will be participating in the 24 in 48 Readathon. I'm not hosting or affiliated with the Readathon in any way, I just thought it sounded really cool, so I definitely wanted to participate. This is a readathon where you try and read 24 total hours in a span of 48 hours, so you can read 20 hours on one day and 4 hours on the other, or 12 and 12, however you want to do it to fit your day. This has been happening annually for a few years now, but this is my first year participating, so this year it will start on January 27th, which is a Saturday at 12:01 a.m., and it will end the following day, Sunday, January 28th at 11:59 p.m. These are supposed to be in Eastern Standard Time, but you have two options. You can either translate those into what your time zone would be, so that would be 9:01 p.m. for me because I'm in Pacific time, or you can just start at 12:01 in your time zone. Personally, I'm just going to start at 12:01 in my time zone. I'm not picky or strict with readathons. I do suggest that if you plan on participating, you just go with 12:01 in your time zone. We have a lot of areas of stress in our lives, and I don't think readathons should really be one of them. The reason I wanted to do this one is because last year I tried to do Dewey's 24-hour readathon, which is the original 24-hour readathon, and it was the 10-year anniversary, so I was just so excited that an event like that had been happening for so long, and so many people around the world come together to do it. But the issue is my job is extremely mentally and emotionally taxing, and on top of that, I spend a lot of time on the road every day, so every day that I am sleep deprived or don't get my optimal amount of sleep takes away from my performance at work, and it becomes really detrimental, and I just don't like going down that whole spiral. So for this grandma, staying up for 24 hours in a row is really difficult. I now have the stamina of like a 95-year-old, but it's all good because I found this readathon. I can get 24 hours of reading in a pretty short amount of time, so we're all good. So anyways, a few more things about it. You can participate on any or all of your social media platforms. You can use a stopwatch or the Stopwatch app on your phone to track your reading. Because we're not reading for 24 hours consecutively, it's kind of helpful to kind of rack up your total hours on a stopwatch. You can also read ebooks, audiobooks, graphic novels, all of that stuff counts. And my favorite part of it that I read on the FAQ for the 24 and 48 website, which I will leave down below, is that some people will donate money to a charity according to the number of pages, the number of books, or the total amount of time that they read. They either like multiply that by a number of dollars or something, and they will donate that total to some charity, which is sometimes a literacy-based organization. And there's a list on the 24 and 48 website. If you want to donate to something else that I personally like to support, there are some local libraries in my area that have literacy programs. For example, I'm thinking of one that's like a read aloud story night with food and snacks for underprivileged families. There is also another library that I'm thinking of that has a language and English language program for people for whom English is not their first language. So definitely a lot of really cool reading related places that you can donate to if you choose to. Okay, so I've talked your ear off about the readathon. I mean, I'm going to continue to talk your ear off because I'm going to let you know what's on my TBR. You guys know I like to stick to my TBR maybe like 40% of the time, but I like to narrow my stack down at least a little bit for readathons so I have something to choose to, so I'm not like 24 hours of choosing books instead of reading books. Okay, so my first book is My Last Love Story by Falguni Kothari. This is about Simi Desai, whose husband Nirvan is dying of cancer. Nirvan has two wishes. First, that she gives birth to their baby, and second, that she reconciles with her ex, who also happens to be their mutual best friend. Nirvan plans these trips and adventures for them to go on to bond a little bit more, spend time together, and also to say goodbye to each other. So I hope a couple of things happen here. So first of all, I don't dislike love triangles. I just dislike when they seem disingenuous. The only love triangle that I've ever read that I have enjoyed is in One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And I have yet to find another one, but I hope, and I don't mean the hope that I referred to in my last video. Oh, I was so close. Okay, I'll stop. But anyways, the author's description, like her biography on the flap of the back cover is actually really cool. So I'm just gonna read it to you because she sounds like an amazing person. So Falguni Kothari is the author of unconventional love stories and kick-ass fantasy tales. Her novels are all flavored by her South Asian heritage and expat experiences. An award-winning Indian classical, Latin, and ballroom dancer, she currently spikes her endorphin levels with Zumba. I personally spike my endorphin levels with tater tots and hot Cheetos, but I mean, I do like Suba as well. Besides the point, I am crossing my fingers that this book gives me another love triangle that I can add to my, I guess now, very short list of love triangles that I enjoy. Next is a book from my last book haul of 2017. If you missed it, I will link it up in the card and in the down bar below, but this is The Leavers by Lisa Ko. This is told in the alternating perspectives of De Mingguo and his mom Polly, who is an undocumented Chinese immigrant. She goes to work one day at a nail salon and she fails to come back home, so she is now pronounced as missing. De Ming is adopted by a white family called the Wilkinsons and they rename him Daniel. We are following his story of whether he can find out what happens to her, and also Polly's story of all the decisions that she has to make along the way, and also her perspective of what happened to her. Next I have A Hope Divided by Alyssa Cole. This is actually the second book in the Loyal League series, but I have heard that you can read them as standalones and you'd be perfectly fine, so that's what I'm going to do here. A little background about me as a human. So I moved to the States several years ago for grad school, so I did all of my K through 12 and also my undergrad in Canada. So all throughout those years, I learned only about Canadian history and very, very little American history, if any. So now that I moved to the States, I want to consume the history of really as many countries as possible, but I definitely do want to brush up on my American history. So this book actually takes place during the American Civil War, and it's a combination of historical fiction, romance, and suspense, which are some of my favorite genres. It takes place in the South and describes some of the more localized conflict outside of their conflict with the North. There was some slavery and rebel uprising during this time, and our protagonist, Marley Lynch, she is biracial. Her mom was formerly enslaved, and she was also a medicine woman, and her dad, who she never knew, was white. Because her mom was a medicine woman, Marley is extremely educated in medical science, particularly having to do with plants and roots and herbs. The Confederate Home Guard eventually ends up taking Marley's home as kind of like their base for operations against the Southern resistors, and Marley meets a man named Ewan, and they have to make a run for it together on the path of the Underground Railroad. I've also read in reviews that Ewan might display symptoms that fit the criteria for autism or something on the autism spectrum, but obviously during this time that terminology wasn't used yet, so if you are looking for representation of those symptoms, you might find them in this book. And the fourth and last book that I have on my TBR, you guys are probably gonna be like, you still haven't read this book. It's on like all of your TBRs. I know, I really have no excuse for not reading this book. But this is Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Maria Machado, and I think that there is a much higher probability of me reading this during this readathon because I really enjoy reading short story collections during readathons. It helps me take a break between all the long novels that I read and get really immersed in, and sometimes honestly really tired after many hours of reading, so I like to kind of use short stories as like a break. There's some fabulous and horror and light horror elements in all of these stories, but they all center around the theme of women's bodies and how they are objectified and viewed by other people and the media, and she uses all of these otherworldly elements to portray that. There is also a novella that's involved in this book, so if you guys pick this up, definitely be aware of that. It has some supernatural stuff going on and revolves around a plot that follows Law and Order, and I mean, I love Law and Order. I can watch it until Netflix asks me, are you still watching Law and Order? Yes, Netflix, I am still watching Law and Order. So yeah, no excuses for not reading this one anymore. I'm gonna get her done. Okay, so that is all the books that I plan on reading for the 24 in 48 readathon. I will leave the website if you guys are interested down below so you guys can sign up if you want. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.